What's going on, guys? G2 here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have another review. So this review today is going to be on the Bushnell AR Optics Red Dot Magnifier, or as they call it, the Transition Magnifier. This is a 3x magnification, and typically these are set up behind a holographic sight, a EOTech, a red dot, to allow you to have some kind of magnification as you're looking at that red dot. So why would you want something like this? Before we get into the review, let's go over some of the pros and some of the cons that come with something like this. One of the pros is if you got bad eyes and you want to be able to magnify those targets, you're able to do that. The other pro to this is it's an extremely versatile system. So with the ability for you to engage this or disengage it based on your current situation, you're able to either use the magnification or use the red dot as normal. So it gives you a little bit of versatility as to how you want to navigate and go through that particular scenario in terms of your target acquisition. So some of the cons for something like this: every time you add on an accessory, you are adding on weight. Every time you add on an accessory, you're adding on a potential another thing that could fail, which would, create a certain situation for you in the field that you'll either have to remove it or work around that. So sometimes less is more and less is better, but there are pros to this that will help you kind of create a little better system that'll make it more well-rounded, more versatile in close, medium, and long-range target acquisition. So, as always, if you're watching this video and you're not a subscriber, take a minute, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so that you are alerted every time that I upload new content. Take a look around. We have a ton of reviews, builds, things like that. Join the community. All right, here we go. So, Bushnell AR Optics. We have done other AR optics in terms of the Bushnell line. Here we did a variable power scope for the 308 that we built, and that actually, I've been really happy with it. It's still on the 308. It's part of the kit, and I absolutely love that. Okay, we have our instruction manual, and as any man would do, we don't need it. Here is our unit. We've got your cleaning cloth that Bushnell typically gives, and then we also have the little multi-tool that they have in there as well. This is a really, really cool multi-tool. It allows you to fully service the optic with just this. And this is also not just for the optic. There's a lot of function here that you can use to service your AR. So let's take a look at this. First impressions of this are, it looks nice. It's heavy, right? It's got some weight to it. So that's coming in at about 13 ounces. So it's not light for sure. Tube here is rubber coated, nice durable rubber coating. It has a cap for the front lens there. Take a look at the glass here in a second. We have our mount here, our flip mount, which uses tension, so you pull it back and rotate it to open, and you pull it back and rotate it to engage it. Just a standard Picatinny mount here, no QD. You can always get different mounts, so this is the mount that it came with. If you wanted to get something different, you can totally get that as well. You've got your 6 T10 torque wrenches, screws here to tighten the mount down to the unit. You have your adjustable windage and elevation for your optic here. So typically when you set this up, your red dot is not going to be perfectly centered on this. Now, this does not adjust your point of aim, point of impact. All that does is make that red dot center inside of this unit. It doesn't have any effect on your zero. So as mentioned, this is a 3x optic. Now, what that means is everything will be magnified. So when you're looking at your target will be magnified, your red dot will be magnified. The good thing about this is it doesn't change your zero. It's still 1 MOA at 100 yards. Everything is just magnified, so you don't have to worry about adjusting your zeros for this. This is reversible, obviously, so if you're a right-handed shooter, this is the eyepiece that will look down. If you're a right-handed shooter, you want that hinge on your right-hand side. The reason you want that is because as you're placing your cheek weld right on your stock, you're typically going to be posting up on the left-hand side of the optic and looking down that way. So when you're not engaging this and you have it out of the way, you want it so that it doesn't obscure your vision. So right-handed shooters, you want the hinge on the right. If you're a left-handed shooter, you want the hinge on the left. So you would just simply take this out, flip it around, and put it on the other way. So let's take a look at the glass. There's a couple things here that I'm not too thrilled about, but we'll get to those in a second. Glass here looks really nice. There's a lot of light going on here, but here's a look at it. Remember, it's magnified, so you're gonna have to find that perfect distance from your eye in order to not get that halo effect that we're seeing here. But other than that, I think the glass looks really nice. Also adjustable back here, so for focusing, you can do that as well. You want to make sure that your target is in focus, obviously, and your dot is in focus, or your reticle, whatever your reticle looks like, is in focus, so you can adjust that accordingly. The one thing right this off the bat that I'm not a fan of is this paint job. Paint job on these pieces, supposedly supposed to be anodized. It's a pretty bad anodizing. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to pick this up, but let's see. If I get the light right, you can see it's a lot of pitting. You hear that? A lot of pitting right there. So the paint job isn't the best. You know, it's a tool, so I don't expect it to look perfect. It's certainly not going to look perfect after we start using it. So I'm going to go grab the rifle and we're going to get this installed. So for those of you who didn't see, this is the current build that we just did. It's a side charging AR-15. This was based on all the recommendations that you guys wanted. All stuff that you guys requested in a build. So it was really, really cool. Really happy with the way it came out. So let's talk about mounting. Now, as we said, I'm a right-handed shooter. So you want to make sure that your hinge is on that right-handed side. Now, how far back do you want to have this? Again, this is personal preference, guys. You can have this as far back as you want. Just make sure that when you're cheek welding, you can look through this and not get that halo. So there's really no right way or wrong way in terms of having this. It's what your setup will allow to your personal preferences and your eyesight. Now, what is kind of a standard is how close do you want this to your red dot? You want to get it as close as you possibly can without hitting that red dot. So for me, I could sit this right here and this would be perfect. So when these bikini straps are off here, right, it's pretty dang close to that red dot. Now remember, when you're tightening these guys down, T10, if you haven't watched the video on torque specifications and requirements, check that video out right here. It's going to go over all that. Should be using some kind of torque wrench. This is the Wheeler fat wrench. Now, when it comes to tightening your mount, this is a little different. These guys can go a little bit higher. So this is I'm using a 13mm socket to tighten this down. I've got my torque wrench set right now. You could go upwards of 60, a little excessive. We're going to drop it at 45, and we're just going to tighten this down. So now that we've got this installed, we can see that if we want to take this off or disengage it, we're just going to pull back and sling it down, and everything gets out of the way. So if I need to use my backup sights, they're still going to work. They're not in the way. This way I can access the covers for the red dot, bring it back, and then we're ready and good to go. So far, it looks good. With the exception of that little paint, I'm not going to hold that against it right now. I got a great deal on this. It was on Amazon. It was a Black Friday deal. Typically retails $189 to $209, somewhere in that range. I got it for $129. So I'm thrilled with it. If I need to get a new mount, maybe I want one of those button quick activation mounts, I can go ahead and do that in the future, and you can find a bunch of manufacturers that make mounts for these. Just remember your tube size. This one is a 24 millimeter tube, so you'd have to have a mount that will accept a 24 millimeter tube. Only thing you really need to worry about. So all this looks good. I think our next step here is we're going to take this out to the range. I'm going to give you some down range views, let you see the red dots, let you see the magnification, let you see the difference between it deployed and not deployed, and you guys can kind of make the decision for yourself if this is something that you'd be interested in putting on your rig. I think it's, like I said, very versatile, gives you a lot of options. Let's get this out to the range and see how she does. All right, guys, so we're out here doing a little range work here with the Bushnell. I had to re-record my audio because the wind and the shooting going on, it just drowned out everything. So basically, the one thing that I noticed that is a fault, but it's not really the fault of the optic, it's more so a fault of myself, was that if you have an astigmatism, you know that red dot sights tend to show up distorted, whether in a star pattern or an oblong pattern, something like that. It will not show up as a true dot like you'll see on the screen here in a second. It's a little distorted. So that magnifier magnifies that issue. Now again, it's not a problem with the magnifier itself. You know, that's me. It's nothing to do with the magnifier. The other thing that I noticed is now that we have it mounted, it is much easier to deploy and to put back. And the more that I've done it, the easier it has become. So one of the good things is you just keep working that mount and it'll ease up for you. So here we're going to do just a panoramic shot here of it mounted to a rifle, and then I'm going to show you here in a second what it looks like when we have it off to the side. And you'll see that it doesn't take up too much of a footprint, it doesn't obscure a lot of your vision. So here is a look at downrange 100-yard target non-magnified. And here we are at same target, 100 yards, using the 3x magnification. So overall, I have to say, I am really happy with this. The ability and the flexibility that it gives you to engage short to medium range targets, I think is well worth it. When you're talking about long range targets, although it does, like you saw in the 100-yard example, give really good ability to engage that target, it's probably not the best thing. But then again, we are dealing with a red dot. Red dot is not designed for longer range engagements, but with the 3x magnification, you have the ability to kind of increase the effectiveness of that red dot. The one thing that I really like with this is when the magnifier is hinged to the side, you can actually use it as a spotting scope for your shooting partner if you wanted to kind of scan downrange and see what's going on. And then you can obviously flip it back if you want to use it in the magnification mode, or you can just kind of keep it there as almost a monocle, for lack of a better word, and just use the red dot as normal. Final thoughts on this: I think with the price point of this on Amazon, it's a really great deal. If you're just getting into this, it's probably worth your money to go ahead and put one in there. I will say, if I would change anything, it would probably be the mount. Most of these red dot magnifiers don't come with mounts, so the fact that this came with it for the $120 price point is pretty good. So I'm going to leave you guys with that and let you make up your own mind. Until next time, make sure that you're practicing safe weapons handling at all times and treating every weapon as if it was loaded. God bless America. G2 out.